Hello, welcome back to the Friday Ramblings, because it's Friday and because we ramble, as all good fans do. What we're going to do right now is basically part 2 of a video that I had previously done before, where we discussed the original trilogy of live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the other three theatrical Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. A lot of T's in there. And kind of wrap up the whole Turtles in movie theaters experience for you. So yes, folks, we're going to do it. We're going to talk about the Paramount Michael Bay Turtles. And you know what? Y'all are going to hate me, because I ain't going to hate it. After all, what do we say here on the Ramblings? Respect the entertainment and keep your criticism constructive. So nope, this is not going to be a bashing video. But before we get to those, we got to discuss the kind of outlier, in a lot of ways, of the Ninja Turtle Theater series. And that is this bad boy right here. No, not it's up here. Don't look up there. This right there in the corner. Shorthanded as TMNT to distinguish it from the original movie, the CGI Theatrical Turtles movie. That's right. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty stats before we discuss the movie proper. The movie came out in 2007, 14 years after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. So yes, Ninja Turtles 3 was such a disappointment and such a bad movie that it took 14 years for the Turtles to get another shot at theaters, and they still had to hide behind CGI. The director was Kevin Monroe, and features the voice acting talent of Nolan North, James Arnold Taylor, Mitchell Whitfield, Mikey Kelly, Chris Evans, yes, that Chris Evans, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Meiko Iwamatsu in one of his last roles, Patrick Stewart, yes, that Patrick Stewart, and a little bit of a cameo role at the end, Zhang Ziyi, but I'm not going to tell you who she plays because we haven't gotten to the end of the film yet. Haha. And also featured music by Klaus Badelt. Now, it is important to note that before we get into whether or not it was a well-written and wonderfully entertaining film, let's toss out the last of the math here. TMNT was considered a commercial success, grossing $95 million worldwide for a budget of $34 million, although it did receive mixed reviews from film critics at the time, and the release coincided with tie-in products including toys, comics, and video games. So, yes, they did go in whole hog with this movie. Now, here's where it gets fun. Original creator of the Ninja Turtles, Peter Laird, said that initially this movie was designed to be a complete standalone. However, director Kevin Monroe said that the movie was intended to follow the continuity of the original live-action film trilogy, which is backed up by the fact that the film includes a recap of events that had previously happened in the Ninja Turtles, including the defeat of Shredder, heavily implied to be the battle scene at the end of Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, as well as, yep, we're going to go ahead and throw a spoiler out here, folks. Scene at the end of the movie, Splinter has a mementos room which includes the Super Shredder helmet and the Time Scepter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. On the other hand, there's also things about the movie that hint towards it having had similar events to the recent Fox TV series, the second cartoon, so its place in continuity is debatable. You can say it stands in its own timeline, as Peter Laird said the original intent of the movie was, with the idea being that it was launching a whole new continuity, but since it does not start with the Turtles' first battles and origins, seems to occur in a timeline where highly similar events to the original movie trilogy did take place. Basically, alternate versions of the film, and possibly a few events from the second cartoon series. So, that's the thing. You can watch the movie on its own. The recap at the beginning does tell you everything you need to know, but if you're a fan of all the movies and the different cartoon shows, you are certainly easily able to fan theory yourself into claiming it fits in those other continuities as well. It's up to you. So, as I said, right then and there from the get-go, the movie's kind of an oddball. It wants to start its own storyline and potential sequels, but it doesn't want to start at the beginning of the Turtles, and the history it does acknowledge and needs setting up for this story seems to be that of the existing movies. So it's an oddball thing. Now what's the story specifically? Well, that after the defeat of the Shredder, relative peace had settled on New York City. Some years had passed, the Turtles were still growing older, and were restless. Donatello and Michelangelo had found themselves getting jobs, Donatello serving as a master of multiple telephone-based consumer services, including the occasional bit of tech support, and Michelangelo being a turtle in a turtle costume hosting children's birthday parties. Whereas Raphael had decided to focus on fighting what crime there was in New York as a vigilante. Although he was not doing it as Raphael of the Ninja Turtles, but as the Night Watcher, a costumed armored identity that was seen in the Mirage Comics continuity before this. Casey Jones and April are romantically involved. They are living together, although not married. And April has, over the years, as had been previously seen in the Archie comics, studied the martial arts herself and become a pretty decent fighter in her own right. She is no damsel in distress. So where's that leave Leonardo? Well, he's not even in New York City. The biggest sign that the Turtles had grown apart was that Leonardo had left to go further his training as a great warrior and leader of people, eventually going to South America to gain greater world perspective while also finding quieter places to meditate. So how does this get going with the fun action stuff? Well, very simple. April O'Neil is no longer any kind of classic news reporter in this continuity, but basically makes her money working in the antiques business, and is hired by oddball and somewhat reclusive rich businessman Max Winters, the aforementioned Patrick Stewart, to help track down certain artifacts for his private collection. One of these brings her to South America, where she runs into Leonardo and convinces him that it is in fact time to return to New York City and the other Turtles. Leonardo returns, sees how the other Turtles have, despite technically all still living in the same sewer layer, started living their own separate lives, and attempts to bring them together as a classic team again. Fortunately, while this is going on, monsters appear in the city, and Max Winter's scheme is revealed. He himself is actually an immortal who is trying to reunite with the other members of his many centuries old army, because if he believes by bringing them all together, he can end the curse, lose his immortality, and finally rest in peace. As, well, it turns out, living forever, you eventually get tired of it. Especially when you're carrying around a bit of guilt and regret on your conscience. Foot Clan are hired by Max Winters to help unite these warriors, as well as the monsters who are needed as part of the curse-breaking ritual. And thus, we get involved in lots of madcap chaos all around the city as the Turtles, along with their allies April and Casey, manage to get involved and try to save the city while figuring out what Max Winters is up to. At the same time, the Turtles have to learn what it means to be a tight-knit family and team again. Casey does his part by convincing Raphael to dump the whole Night Watcher thing, pointing out, dude, the only reason nobody else has called you on this Night Watcher nonsense is the others have been too busy to notice. Face it, you can costume yourself however you want. You can't hide the fact you're a giant turtle just because you put on some armor and a goofy mask. Helmet. It's kind of obvious to anybody that's ever seen you fight before, dude. So, when it's all said and done, Max Winters gets what he wants. The monsters go away. Turtles save the day and are truly a united family again. And we get a little bit of a tease for a sequel that never happened when Foot Clan leader Karai shows up and says that the Shredder may not be 100% dead after all, and when he does return, he will be looking for the Turtles. As I said, sadly we did not get sequels due to various things going on, including the rights for the Turtles kind of changing hands, and different people disagreeing about whether this was the direction they wanted to keep taking the Ninja Turtles. Still, when it's all said and done, it is a good chapter in the Ninja Turtles. Despite the fact that it was designed to be a mostly standalone movie that by and large tried to set up its own sequels, I would not say this is a good jumping on point. The movie does a nice little intro sequence that attempts to lay the foundation for a history, but it's really more of a movie for embedded fans, as opposed to, say, the original live-action movie, which does a much better job of introducing the world in a way that feels like this is the opening chapter of a saga, not coming into the middle. Now, that doesn't mean every time you want to do a reboot, you have to start with an origin story. The MCU Spider-Man films are a great example of that. We glossed over the whole Uncle Ben with great power nonsense because we have seen it over and over and over again. We know. However, the simple fact is it does hint at the fact that this version of the Turtles had already been through a lot of things without showing them. And one of the great rules of storytelling is show, don't tell. Still, as I said, if you are an embedded Turtles fan, this is a very fun chapter in the saga, and it is an interesting peek at what would happen should the turtles find themselves drifting apart, and what they might end up doing with their separate lives. But I know what you come here for, folks. You want to hear about the Paramount Turtles. The Paramount Turtles. Yep, these two things may be, along with this one, yes. We're going to kind of do a double shot review here. These two may be the most divisive Turtles stuff I have ever witnessed, and since I remember when the original cartoon first hit, that is saying a lot. I mean, I personally have my opinions about the current cartoon series, but we're gonna kind of save that for another night. Still, seems like this is a film. These are a set of films that tend to harshly divide people who care about the Ninja Turtles. A lot of people, especially your more casual fans, hate these movies. Mostly the visuals. So, let's do some hard data numbers real quick, and then we'll get into the ifs and outs of it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out in 2014. It was produced by Nickelodeon Movies and Platinum Dunes, and distributed by Paramount Pictures. And as well as featuring Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird as writers. We care about this because they are the men who created the Ninja Turtles to begin with. This is important for some of the defending of these movies I will get into. First film was released on August 8, 2014. This film received generally negative reviews from critics, but was a box office success, earning $493.3 million on a $125 million budget, and became the highest-grossing film in the series. The film won the Worst Supporting Actress Award at the 35th Golden Raspberry Awards in 2015 for Megan Fox's performance as April O'Neil, and also received nominations for Worst Picture, Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay. It did not win any of those, though, so Conversely, it was also nominated at the 28th Kids' Choice Awards for Favorite Movie Actor, and Favorite Movie Actress. Our sequel, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, came out in 2016. Still involves Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird on the writing side. And brings in Stephen Amell as Casey Jones. You may know him from the CW's Green Arrow and related DC shows. And let's see, do we have a mention? And the movie did gross $245.6 million against a $135 million budget. So while it did make a profit, it was not nearly as successful as its predecessors, even though it did get better reviews from the critics, being considered storyline-wise an improvement over the previous one. So what's up with these movies? Okay, well, the first one does go back to our origins of the Ninja Turtles. How they became Teenage Mutant Ninjas, and how they met up with April O'Neil. As well as featuring the origins of the Shredder. Now in this one, the Shredder is not working alone. There is another villain who serves as almost a bit of a swerve, kind of a fake-out main villain, in the character of Eric Sachs, who serves as the frontman for a science-based business who is secretly the apprentice of the Shredder, who is running things behind the scenes and using Eric Sachs's connections around town and money to help set up the Foot Clan to be a powerhouse group in secret. As for the Turtles, ultimately it's the same basic origin that you have seen before. This time, they were not exposed to the mutagen accidentally, but they were in fact laboratory experiments done by Eric Sachs and April's father, April being the one who named the Turtles as a young girl before events happened in which the Turtles and Splinter, who was also an experimental lab rat, ended up in the sewers where they mutated and formed their own family unit. Many years pass. The Turtles grow up enough where they are capable of being vigilantes and start interfering in crimes committed by the Foot, drawing the attention of Shredder, who brutalizes the Turtles and almost kills Splinter in a fight in the sewers, prompting them to take the fight to Shredder, as well as his access to mutagen, which can be used to heal Splinter, thus saving the life of their surrogate father. At the same time, they find out just how deep Shredder's schemes go and decide to save the city, although doing it behind the scenes as they are not ready for their existence to be known to the public. This is important for the plot lines of the second movie, which we'll get to in a second. So, sounds like a pretty good story, right? Sounds like a classic Turtles story. Why do people hate it? Well, part of it is it's the nature of the internet. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. This is a case where the internet did a lot of damage that it didn't need to do. Specifically, all of these entertainment news sites that wanted to sit there and get scoops on this big movie, massive reboot to an established big money franchise involving a brand new studio, some big name actors. It happens. So, what did they do? Well, like almost every major Hollywood movie, the script went through several revisions. And I don't just mean tweaking a little bit of dialogue. I mean, there were a lot of movies, if you ever go through the history of these kind of behind the scenes things, will have major aspects of their movie rewritten after it's initially greenlit with the studio and before it ever starts seriously filming. And even then, during the process of filming, entire characters can be cut, major scenes can be rewritten, prompting the rewriting of later scenes in the movie. I mean, there's dozens of Hollywood movies where it wasn't until the test market footage was shown in private that they decided to change the ending. Sometimes the ending's not even set in stone until, like, the last second. Actors have had to be called back months after they finished filming their parts because they're needed for new scenes. As, basically the rule in Hollywood is until the film gets public release, it's not done. But I'm not going to go into the super depths of Hollywood politics, but these kind of things happen. The problem is, remember how I said about the script revisions? Well, that's one of the things that haunted the original Ninja Turtles. As rumors about what was going to be the movie's plot leaked to the internet and lasted well after these scripts that had nothing to do with leaks, but just the fact that, well, once people seriously got into looking into filming them and you got various other creative people involved, we realized these weren't good ideas. It might be fine for like a cartoon or a comic book, but for a big theatrical movie, no, this isn't the direction to go into, especially if you want to have sequels. But the plot lines were leaked out to the internet and they persisted. The worst part is, because they weren't the full script, the plot lines were a little misleading. The most famous of this being that the turtles were going to be aliens. This caused a huge backlash. Now, yes, that was one of the earliest shooting scripts. However, it was rejected and completely written out before filming ever began. But B, let's put this into context now that more information has come out and proper interviews with the cast and crew at the time having come forth. Yes, there was a script that said they were going to be aliens. However, the reason why this was done is they were going to specifically be from Dimension X and running from Krang, a classic Turtles villain who fans had long since wanted to see brought to a theatrical movie. Now, when you put it in this context that, okay, they're aliens because this is how we're going to bring in Krang by having them be rebels and freedom fighters from Dimension X who bring Krang and the war to Earth, it is not nearly as big a slap in the face to Turtles mythos as it initially sounds like. These were not Superman pastiche Turtles. This was, okay, well, we want to do Krang. What if Krang's here because he's chasing the Turtles because they're from Dimension X? That is not nearly as big a deal. It's still not mutants, but at least it is based on something the fans wanted to see, and it is based in existing mythos, their long-standing rivalries with Krang and his status as a warlord of Dimension X. Still, this was one of the big things that got people mocking the movie and saying it's bullcrap and they had lost interest in the movie, even though it never got filmed. Even after the movie had started filming and it was clear that that was not going to be a plot point in the movie, people were still talking about, oh my god, they're going to make Turtles aliens. So right then and there, that was one of the major shots against the movie that, frankly, it didn't deserve. You know, that's the kind of thing that should not have been leaked. Because it wasn't the shooting script. It was an early draft script. You know, and this has happened to other movies too. So on that one, I'm going to give a big to the internet entertainment websites that are constantly obsessed with 24/7, 365 updates on projects. Stop it! You're causing damage. Yeah. The other big thing that people have had a lot of crap for is the visuals of the Turtles. I want you to look at this. Now, yes, they are ugly looking. They're freaking experimental mutants. Look, it's one thing for an 80s cartoon or a black and white independent comic done by two guys to draw very simple, low detail, cute looking turtles. Remember, that was part of what the Mirage comic originally was, since it was a satire of the dark, moody anti-hero comics that were popping up all over the place in the late 70s and 80s. They wanted to use cute, cartoony-looking characters to serve as a juxtaposition of the dark feel of it. Oh, even cute walking, talking turtles can be dark and gritty. It's kind of silly when you say it. Yeah, kind of like, oh my god, aliens, let's boycott the movie. It's that kind of silly. Difference is Mirage did it intentionally because that was the joke. But this is a whole new Turtles. This is an alternate reality. They don't have to look like the 87 cartoon characters. You're allowed to tweak. The second cartoon series that preceded these movies tweaked the character designs. The cartoon series versus the Archie books versus the Mirage books all had tweaked designs. They stayed to a generally same aesthetic, but every artist has done done their best to put their own little tweak to the look of the turtles. It is not something you have to obsess over. You've got the keys here. You have 4 of them. They have ninja weapons. They have color-coded face masks. After that, the rest is not a sin to change. Obsessing over that is obsessing over your childhood nostalgia and wanting to pretend that your childhood never ended. This is one of the things that we rail against on Roulette Productions. You need to grow with your fandom. You need to be like, hey, look, I get it now. There's reasons things look certain ways in certain decades. We're allowed to change because that's the whole point in doing a new project of an old license, is to put new spins on it. Now let's talk about some positives of this visual, because you people don't want to talk about positives of the visuals because you're obsessed with your childhood. Stop it. You're not children anymore. I love the Ninja Turtles as much as anybody. I have sunk a lot of money into the Ninja Turtles over my lifetime. I have emotional investment in these characters going back decades. I accepted the fact they're not always going to look like the first version of them I saw. Here's what I like about this. Raphael has a different style mask. Donatello's got glasses. Leonardo's got chest protector. Heck, Raphael himself is bulkier and more muscular distinctly. You know what this means? It means visually you not constantly checking the headbands to see who's who. They are making the turtles unique visually because they are unique in personality. This is a positive. This should be praised. They had the ability to make highly detailed costumes and looks for the turtles. They had the ability to go back on decades of material and see that they each have carefully crafted personalities. So they get different appearances. You can have 3 brothers. You can all enjoy football. It doesn't mean you're all going to constantly look the same. You're allowed to dress a little differently. One of you's allowed to be a little bulkier than the others. That's a positive. That is realistic. People always say that. Oh, I want more reality in my movies so it's easier for me to get lost into them. Well, this is your reality. This is what you wanted. And you complained because you got it. So, having gotten over the visual argument, having said that, frankly put, I'm dismissing the entire, oh, the turtles are ugly, so this movie's crap argument. Let's discuss Splinter. Visually, Splinter looks great. That is my favorite visual depiction of Splinter. He's voiced by Tony Shalhoub, and he has an excellent personality in that he is clearly the authority in this dynamic, as when the turtles sneak out to play crime fighters, he punishes and interrogates them in a classic parental style, as well as showing the ability and desire to go one-on-one with the Shredder to save the lives of his sons. That is a great Splinter. I'm going to say this. Outside of the IDW Comics depiction, which kind of cheats because it has a, several years worth of material building up to it that it's been working on, this is my favorite depiction of Splinter. He feels like a parental figure and his own person in his own right, not just some two-dimensional Yoda wannabe wisdom dispensing moron puppet sitting in his chair all the time. Yeah. So, comes to visuals, let's go ahead and say it, Megan Fox. Alright, I'm going to agree with people here. Megan Fox is not a good actress. She's very visually appealing. She is a classic Hollywood, aesthetically pleasing to the eyes beauty. She did not make a good April O'Neil. I would have preferred adult actress who uses the stage name April O'Neil to be my April O'Neil. I think she would have done a better job on it. If you don't know who I'm talking about, look her up on your own time. We're not a kids channel, but we do try to keep it a little safe to work. But yes, there's an adult actress who is such a massive Ninja Turtles fan that she took the stage name April O'Neil in honor of their most common human ally. So, let's bust out the plot to Ninja Turtles 2, Out of the Shadows. Because, my man! That's right, it's my man. Warlord Crane finally gets his theatrical debut that we have all been waiting for since we heard the original theatrical movie was coming out and we weren't sure who was going to be in it, let alone the sequels. Hey, maybe this one will have Crane. Maybe this one will have Crane. We finally got a Crane, and he is a gloriously disgusting, amoral warlord of a villain. The movie picks up shortly after the events of the first film, in which the Ninja Turtles are angsting because they saved the city, yet they still have to hide and let other people take the credit for saving the day. Meanwhile, Shredder is being transported in a highly armored prison van along with Bebop and Rocksteady, who are long-standing gang members in their own right, who are not directly connected with Shredder, were heading to the same place, and so they were all on the same ride. After expressing some serious fanboy admiration of the Shredder, Bebop and Rocksteady take advantage of the Foot Clan breaking Shredder out to effect their own escape. Ninja Turtles interfere with Shredder's escape attempt, but are outthwarted by the aforementioned Krang, who teleports Shredder away, gives him some pure mutagen to use to make some soldiers capable of helping Krang assemble the weapon he needs to bring his entire armada, including his ultimate weapon, the Technodrome, to Earth to conquer it. Shredder enlists the help of amoral scientist Baxter Stockman, played by the highly well-known Tyler Perry, who uses the mutagen to mutate the criminals Rocksteady and Bebop, who Shredder had tracked down while they were chilling at their favorite bar and deciding what they were going to do for their next criminal scheme. And we get the classic Warthog and Rhino we all know and love in a wonderful transformation sequence. Bebop and Rocksteady are played by Gary Anthony Williams and Stephen Farrelly. Gary Anthony Williams had previously worked as the voice of Uncle Ruckus on the Boondocks, Yancey Westridge in Alpha Protocol, and Horace Warfield in StarCraft II Wings of Liberty, as well as appearing on the television series Weeds, Boston Legal, Blue Collar TV, and Malcolm in the Middle. Stephen Farrelly is more well known as WWE wrestler Sheamus. And I loves me some Sheamus. I've been a fan of Sheamus since his WWE debut, which was several years before this movie, and I was happy to see him bring his take to such a classic character as Rocksteady. So right there, hey, I'm all for it. Unfortunately, during this prison break, Detective Casey Jones was involved as he was one of the lead drivers and found his career hitting a wall due to him having to take the failure on his personal record. Suspended due to the fact the police commissioner did not want to hear about the Shredder disappearing into thin air or the Foot Ninjas being back and being the major cause of the prison escape of all three criminals, he decides to go vigilante and very quickly runs into the Ninja Turtles in April. Thus begins a series of awkward, flirty courtship between April and Casey as the Turtles bounce around the city and even briefly into the South American rainforest. Again, wasn't Leo there for the CGI film? Guess they really liked it and wanted to reuse that plot point. Retrieving the pieces of Krang's super weapon. The Turtles having different priorities, specifically when they get a sample of the mutagen Bebop and Rocksteady used, and Donatello theorizes he can use it as a cure, are unable to prevent the super weapon from being assembled as they are not working as a tight unit. All of this culminates in the big final battle in which the super weapon is assembled, Krang begins bringing the Technodrome to Earth, and he betrays Shredder, putting Shredder in cryostasis and bragging about how easy it was to manipulate Shredder, and that Krang would never share any planet with an inferior life form. The Turtles reveal their existence to the police commissioner, and with the help of the police, get to the site of the Technodrome's arrival on Earth, battling against Krang before managing to break the teleportation machine, sending the Technodrome and Krang back to Dimension X, and in a ceremony attended by the police department, finally getting the commendations and recognition as protectors of the city that they had been seeking, as well as coming to terms with their differing priorities in life and realizing that they don't need to be turned human and they don't need to be divided because they are family, and at the end of the day they are what they are, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, let's break down to it. All condemnations of silly littleness aside, it's like this. I enjoy the two Paramount movies. I feel they tell very good stories that are classic Ninja Turtle stories, dealing with alienation from the world that they desire to protect, teenage angst and uneasiness about their own future, as well as a lot of kick-butt ninja action. We get the continued romantic pairings of Casey and April in the second movie. Sadly, it does not look like there will be a third movie in this continuity, as it seems like the lessened profit seen in the second movie was a sign from Nickelodeon and Paramount that this was not a direction to continue to pursue. It's all about money in the end. So where do these three movies rank compared to the first three movies we discussed in our previous review? Well, I'm going to say that the worst of the six movies is Ninja Turtles 3. The best is still going to be the original Ninja Turtles movie. So, what about the middle four? Well, I enjoy Ninja Turtles 2 in a lot of ways. Toka and Razor made great Bebop and Rocksteady stand-ins, and it told a good story in its own right of the Turtles finally knowing the full truth of their own origins and coming to terms with the fact that, frankly, nobody really planned on making mutant ninjas, especially of an amphibian style. Still, this is again where it gets tricky. I'm going to say that I would put I'm going to go ahead and put Secret of the Ooze in the number 2 slot. I will put the two Paramounts above the CGI. Well, the CGI does not necessarily have any glaring problems with it. It's, as I said, even for an established fan like myself, It is an awkward movie plot-wise. It really feels like they had made the second movie in a trilogy, forgetting they never made the first one. So you sit there and you wonder, why are you exposition dumping so much history on me? Why couldn't some of these battles, why couldn't the initial schisming of the Turtles be the first movie? There's a lot of potential, really good story that's just exposition dumped in you in a couple of minutes. And because of that, you spend the whole movie wondering why it feels like you're missing something. And that drags the movie down below the two Paramounts, which, again, I would not show them as the original movies to get people into hardcore Ninja Turtles fandom, but they are not insults to the franchise. Frankly, as I said, some of their TV entries I would place even below Ninja Turtles 3. Still, this has been a little bit of an extended time with us tonight. We had a lot to talk about. I had to get a little bit off my chest. If you disagree with me, feel free to comment. I do ask that you do it politely and respectfully, because we do try to build a community where we're not intentionally trying to offend anybody here. I know I did get a little heated, but it just drove me nuts to hear at the time people have these reasons for dismissing the movie and not wanting to see it in theaters, and even hesitating to see it on later home release, that really had nothing to do with what the story was all about. And I feel like there's certain people out there that have missed out on a very good Turtles movie because of stuff that they were told by the internet, or stuff that they overanalyze seeing in individual pictures instead of seeing it in context. And as a creative person, that hurts my feelings. Like, that's something I feel like y'all really shouldn't do. Like, you really should give this movie a fair chance. So, you know, it's a thing. I don't usually get that heated, but it's something that cuts deep to who I am and why I do these ramblings, why I do my game streams, why this entire channel exists. Because, as I say at the end of every video, folks, you're allowed to criticize as long as you keep constructive. We don't believe in hating. We don't believe in picking fights with people. Love something, hate it. You're free to feel however you want about it, but be respectful to the people that created it, and be respectful to those who have a different opinion than you, because in the end, it's entertainment. It's supposed to enhance your life. So, you know what? Check out all three of these films. You can rank them however you want on your list. But I do want you to come back in 7 days, because we're going to have another Friday Rambling. Because if we wouldn't call them Friday Ramblings, they didn't spring up every Friday. And we wouldn't call them Ramblings if I could actually talk about this stuff coherently in a much quicker fashion than I just did. Still, I do love you for sticking with me, and I hope you continue to stick with me. Bye-bye, folks.